Will it ever stop being hot? Hey everybody, it's Ruby here today, and I thought that I would do my July wrap-up and my August to be read. I'm not too happy with how many books I finished this month because a lot of them were fairly small and one I actually abandoned, but I will show them anyways. The first book is Cat's Eye by Margaret Atwood. This is a general fiction book about an older woman, I'm thinking maybe middle age, who goes back to her previous city of Toronto. She now lives in Vancouver, and she reminisces about past childhood experiences, most of which is about the age between 7 and 9, and then also some of the men that she dated. I was unsure about this book just because it is general fiction, and I know Margaret Atwood is more of a speculative or science fiction novelist, but she absolutely blew me away. Her descriptions were honest and harsh and completely relevant to things that I have experienced myself, and I couldn't put it down. It was the first book that I've pretty much read in a very long time that I kept thinking back, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should be reading. So definitely a wonderful book. And after I read this book, I went out and I bought 4 more Margaret Atwood books. So that definitely shows how much I like her. The second book that I read is The Unpleasant Profession of Jonathan Hoag by Robert Heinlein. This is a collection of short stories and one novella, which was written obviously by Robert Heinlein, and it was written in the 1950s and is a pretty influential book that is also speculative fiction. A lot of these are fairly bizarre or sort of surreal books, and others sort of deal with almost the idea of reality, which was absolutely excellent. It wasn't necessarily like a book that drew me in, but it was a book that I knew was influential and a book that was bizarre enough for me to want to finish it. This third book is The Science of Harry Potter. This is the book that I didn't actually finish. I think this is a book that I will have to come back to every once in a while. I read part of it in a doctor's waiting room, and I think that I read about half of it without understanding a single bit. It is fairly dry, and it deals with certain subjects that I am not necessarily familiar with, like physics and chemistry. So I will be coming back to this, but at the moment I will be putting it down and going to other books because I feel like I'm being unfair to the huge amount of books that I have still to read. Fourth book is S, or Ship of Theseus. This was a book that I actually did a book review on, which I will link down below, and I've also done a couple of unboxings and book hauls and things that have mentioned this book, so I feel like there isn't anything I really have to say that much on. It is a book about a book, so there is a fictional novel, Ship of Theseus, which was discovered by 2 students who try and discover the real identity of Straka, the guy who wrote it. So inside of this book are marginal notes and also ephemera about their search for this guy. The interesting thing too is that I read it in a couple days, absolutely loved it, and I gave it to my dad to read, and he's actually just reading the story. He's not reading the margins because he's not necessarily that interested in the romance and research that's going on. And I think that's a really good indication of a book if people are able to read the book and both enjoy it but take away 2 completely different things from it. So I would definitely recommend this. The fifth book is Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut. This was definitely on my list of books to read for quite a while, and it was on my TBR list, I believe, or at least Kurt Vonnegut was, and I'm not sure what to say exactly. I know it's speculative fiction, I know it's supposed to be kind of bizarre, but it is something that I'll probably have to reread to completely understand, because there are layers and narratives and bits of it that I feel like I had been missing. Almost like you had to read completely between the lines to really understand what the author was getting at. That's not necessarily a bad thing, that's just sort of the impression that I got from it. However, I do understand why people recommend this book, and I definitely would recommend it if you are a speculative fiction or sci-fi nerd. And yeah, I was blown away. And lastly is Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. This is a book that also surprised me. It's been mentioned quite a bit. It's definitely a classic sci-fi novel, and it's definitely one that a lot of book nerds should be reading if they haven't already. But I sort of was against reading it just because it had been hyped up so much that I thought, well, like, how could it possibly be as good as it's being hyped up? And of course, there seems to be a lot of patterns in my videos where I seem to say that and then I absolutely love them, like Margaret Atwood. So it happened twice in 1 month. But with this, it blew me away. There's so many quotable passages. It's about the idea of books. It's about entertainment. It's about the idea of watering down entertainment, not to offend people, which I think is a salient point right now because Hollywood and a lot of entertainment industries are doing just that. I don't think that it's nearly as dystopian as he is describing, but it is definitely worth thinking about. And his arguments in this aren't necessarily like don't watch TV or don't be political or any of that sort of thing. It's just sort of an analysis of it and to sort of show that even reading isn't always the best for you. Honestly, it's an amazing book anyways. And I'm going to be doing a review of this book tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. Okay, and then on to my August to be read list. This one is quite small, which is why I added it to my wrap-up video. Just because with a lot of videos that I'll be doing and a wedding that I'm going to go to and my birthday and just a whole bunch of stuff, I feel like this month is going to be a little bit more hectic than the other months. That might actually mean that I'll be reading more because I'll be procrastinating, but regardless, these are the books that I'll be reading. I'd like to do a speculative fiction video, so I've been catching up on that, as you've been able to tell from the books I've already read. So I'm going to be reading Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. I believe that this is a sci-fi book, and it is definitely, I think, worth reading. I don't know too much about it, and the summary on the back actually kept me from reading it for quite a while. It seems to be almost more like an adventure book or a survival book, which I'm not necessarily as into, but considering that it's Margaret Atwood, I feel like I'm gonna like it anyways. The second book is The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula Le Guin, also a sci-fi book about a race of people that switch genders every couple of months with like the changing of the moon, which on a different planet means a couple different months. I love these kind of books because I feel like a lot of what we've been taught with gender and stuff like that is sort of socially taught, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with how we're taught or what we're taught. And books that challenge this, I think, are incredibly interesting because they're so ingrained in humanity. Anyways, so I am definitely looking forward to reading this. I've been wanting to read it for a couple of years, so I will be hustling to try and get through this. The last book, I'm actually sort of reading from circumstance. I mentioned that I bought this book to someone and they said that everybody buys this book and doesn't read it. And then I noticed that a couple people on YouTube are doing a read-along, so I thought that I would read it as well. I'm not sure if I will do the read-along because I'm not sure when I'll start this, finish this, or how much time I'll really have, but I am bound and determined to read and finish War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy. The only thing that scares me, and I think it scares a lot of people, is just how massive it is. This edition is 880 84 pages, so almost 900 pages, and the print on it is tiny, like absolutely insanely tiny. But I'm going to convince myself that this is not one book, but a series of books, because it is cut up into different volumes and things like that. And it's not like I haven't read 800 pages before, I just haven't read 800 pages in a row before. So that is going to be a challenge for me. And that is why there's only 3 books on my to be read list for August. So that is all my books for July and August, and of course I will keep you guys updated on that. Let me know if there are any books that you're looking forward to reading, or if there are any books that you would like me to review. Like always, comment, subscribe, like, do your thing, and I will actually talk to you guys tomorrow.